G'day guys, welcome to another episode of the Pumped on Property Show. Now in today's episode, Simon and I are going to have a bit of a laugh at each other about some of our own experiences over the last 15 years as investors. So we worked out that we bought about 22 properties between us over that period of time.
The vast majority being Ben's, let's be honest.
And the vast majority of the mistakes being over this side of the cast as well.
Very true.
And then on top of that, I think we bought about 550, maybe 600 million bucks worth of property for clients as well. So, you know, these are some of the major lessons and mistakes that I've made, that Simon's made, and we really haven't talked about what we're going to say to each other.
No.
Or like you sort of wrote your things down, I wrote mine down. So let's kick something off.
You know, we're not perfect and we're just trying our best. And at the end of the day, like, we've all made mistakes and we're going to continue to make mistakes, but we do try and learn from these lessons, and I'll incorporate that into some of the funny things that I've done as well over the years. But, you know, it's all about just, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome.
I did that like 12 times now. 12 different properties.
Finally got there at the end. Yeah, but it just, like, you got to learn from these mistakes. We're going to make them regardless. But, you know, the good thing is it hasn't held you back from continuing the journey. It definitely hasn't held me back from continuing the journey. But I guess to kick it off, like, what do you wish you did differently?
Like, being honest, I think it's crazy to say this now, but until I bought my 9th property, I didn't even have a property plan. Like, that's insane when you think about what we do every single day, which is like, we would never start someone without absolute financial clarity. But I didn't. I had no plan. I'd read books, like I've said before, which were like 0 to 100 and X amount of properties in a few years and 10 properties in 10 years. And there just wasn't this sort of stuff going on back then. And so I really thought,
you're ancient.
The more properties, yeah, I'm an ancient investor. I'm 1,000 years into it now. 15,000 years into it.
But seriously, there may have been podcasts, but you would have had to like search through the World Wide Web. You know, like
15 years ago, I literally don't think there was such a thing as a potty. There were like videos were cranking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Well, it wasn't as saturated as it is these days, or as easy as it is these days as well. So it's kind of like you needed more mentors, and those mentors, you're just getting one example. You're not getting like the vast range of different strategies and options.
The thing about, you know, one person, my opinion or yours, is it's tainted by my experiences, my biases, my risk profile, my tolerance for debt. And so, yeah, like I had no plan at the start, and therefore I had no financial clarity. And so what that meant for me is like, this thing looks shiny, this looks interesting, this looks shiny. And when I look back, what I was seeking was an education through my own experiences and money. But in reality, what I was getting was an education with my own experiences and money, and not the truest form of education. Like, it was like, well, I've learned how to buy. Now I want to renovate. Now I want to build. Now I want to do dual locks. Now I want to do Airbnb. Now I want to do a subdivision. Now I want to...
The jack of all trades.
Sell. Now I want to hold. Now I want to try like this market, that market. And I got my education from doing, where you don't have to do that anymore. You can actually learn from other people's experiences, collect ideas, and then make a plan before you even begin.
And I think having the plan it creates clarity, and it gives you that North Star. And, you know, I think it's always going to change. And, you know, for me, I don't want to get too wedded to the strategy, because, you know, it's going to change as time goes by. But at the beginning, you need that clarity. You need to go, okay, well, if I do this, then it should get me to there. So every single strategy session that I do throughout the weeks is, you know, helping people personalize their plan and go, okay, well, you know, I want to buy 3 investment properties and my own home, and by the time I retire, I want to be debt free on these. Okay, well, how do we do that? And where will you be by retirement if you actually do that? And then it's like, cool, there's clarity. But then as you start going through it, even if you did have a strategy back then, it would have changed.
Without a doubt. And this is the thing, like, we grow so much. And the person that we start out of, you know, the idea of, for me as a 24-year-old, replacing 30K was like my original journal goals of like, this would be amazing because my base level living costs would be covered and I'd be done.
Mm.
And now these days it's like 150 grand a year to even like cover my lifestyle with 3 kids at private school and the way I want to eat and, you know, get nice lodges and train and travel and like just live. So, you know, I've grown so much, but yeah, financial clarity and a clear plan, I think is my number one lesson. What about you?
Well, I did mine a bit different. Like I sort of did it per property and what I wish I did differently. And hindsight's 2020, right? Like it's 2024. I look back at 2018, 6 years ago when I bought my first property. And
Hindsight's 2020. It's 2004 and you born in 2000. Put back to the
that's Simon math.
yeah, I love all that.
But I like in hindsight, it and this was a part of the town plan at the time. I just didn't do enough research. The north side of the street that I bought on, Albert Street in Margate, and the north side is next generation zoning. But at the time, I bought the property with just the intention to knock it down and rebuild it when I could financially afford to do so and build a dual lock. But in hindsight, now that I know that northern side of the road, which is literally directly opposite my property, is next gen zoning when I'm in a suburban neighborhood. So the price per square meter is quite significantly more on the northern side of the road than it is on the southern end, just because you've got more development potential on the north side. So like I could have absolutely bought on the northern side of the road or bought in that area.
Might have only been 50K, where now it's hundreds of K.
Maximum 50K. Now, the good news is, talking to a town planner, they do expect that next gen zoning to expand, which will then eventually take over mine. But I just am sort of sitting here in limbo land, in purgatory at the moment, waiting for an external influence to impact my strategy, which, you know, kind of sucks. I want to have control. I don't want to be reliant on other people.
I love that. Yeah, I think our town planner's husband is the head of town planning at that council.
Yeah.
And I think some good things are coming. So I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, who knows?
What about your second one?
The second thing that I figured was I realized that I didn't have to wait 15 to 30 years for freedom. So I didn't have any idea of this concept of financial peace 15 years ago, even 4 years ago. So I always thought you're only free once you've achieved financial freedom. You own your home and all of your assets outright and you're living off the income. But in reality, most of the time as an investor is spent paying down debt and a really small amount spent setting it up. So if we think about the financial clarity of like, I want to own my own home plus 100 grand a year of passive income for life. So 2 houses plus my own home owned outright. Theoretically, for most people with a combined household income of 100 to 300K, which is most people we work with, they will be able to execute that strategy because a lot of them might be just starting out, but a lot of them already own 1 or 2 good assets or their own home as well. And so theoretically, that of an initial accumulation, that first phase of setting it up, for most people can take like 2 to 5 years. It took you 5 years. When I got it right, it took me like 2 years to do my thing. Like some of our baller clients have done it in 8 months. Others have taken 10 years. But this idea that once you've got the assets that in 15 years time will make you free, you're already living financial peace and you don't need to put any more pressure on yourself. Like if you want to keep going down the business path, the career path, because you love it like we do, then keep going. But if you don't, it's a great opportunity to retrain, change industries, start that business, spend more time with your kids, travel, work 4 days a week, take the school holidays off. Like after you've got the assets and you're in a safe place with a buffer and you know your job can cover the properties up to about a 7% interest rate, you can really take a lot of the pressure off yourself. But I didn't. I still went as hard 15 years in or 14 years in as I was in year one. And I was putting all of this unconscious pressure on myself by looking at my spreadsheets and constantly looking towards the future of how I'm going to achieve my goals versus just going, I've got the assets. By 50, I'll be sweet. So now what do I want to do? And what I want to do is what I'm doing now, which was I just took 6 months off and traveled around Australia with my family. I take the school holidays off. I take every Friday off. I work school hours, like crazy things that 24, 30, 35-year-old Ben could never imagine doing. But now that I realize, like, training every day, surfing when the surf's good, hanging with my family, going on a small number of good holidays a year, having a caravan is important to me. I'm really leaning into getting the joy and the growth in my life from that. So I think set up the properties safely but quickly, and then get back to doing what the fuck you really want to do is what I would have done personally.
I love that. And I think, something that popped into my mind just then is like this idea of gratitude as well. And it's like being ambitious and being driven to, create a good financial future for yourself and your family. There's a certain mentality that you need to make that happen. And it is more yang, like, let's go for it. Let's push hard. Let's work hard.
Feminine one?
No, that's the go for it
Oh,
one.
separate.
And
I should have been in my yin.
but like what a lot of people don't do is appreciate what they've got. And I think that's what takes away from this financial piece. People think that they will only be free and happy once they've got the passive income. But that's
I really believe that. I genuinely thought that that was the only way to be.
yeah, but now that you've got it, that it doesn't change anything. And so realizing that, hey, I've just been through this intense season of acting and investing and doing what I need to do. Let's take stock. Let's be grateful for what I've got. Let's look back 5 or 10 years and go, I'm further down my path than I thought I was going to be back then. Like, let's be a little bit more grateful. So I think that financial peace can only be attained if you live with that gratitude, if you are appreciative for the things that you have, and appreciate the journey, not just looking to the destination and thinking that that's what's going to make you happy.
And I think something that you helped me with years ago, like when I was struggling with anxiety, was I said to you one day, I don't know if you remember, I just was like, how come you're happy all the time? Like, I literally asked that question because I was like suffering at that point. And you're like, well, I just do this gratitude and that's really helped me. And so I'm like, by this point, 20 years down the path of knowing what's really good for me, like gratitude, affirmations and stuff. But I'd forgotten to practice it. I'd forgotten to practice some of the things that I knew had massive upside that I was doing at different phases when I was in a better space. And I started to do that, and it immediately started to change my life. Like, I have more than enough. And the more I have to give, and changing like the mentality around those things was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm super grateful for that. And also watching your journey, like I'm 14, 15 years in and just getting it. But you accumulated yours. You've still got this gap between where it is and financial freedom, which is just the time that you haven't had to pay off the debt yet and the market doing its thing. But you've also gone, well, I don't want to work Fridays, which if you don't work Fridays and you get
a long weekend,
13 weeks off a year with 4 weeks off a year. And then you've gone, well, if I want to take more time off, we can do that. And now you're saying in the new year, because we've chosen as a business to only take on an average of 2 to 3 incredible clients per week over the course of a whole year, it's like, well, I'm only working with 2 to 3 really good people per week. I don't need to be working even 4 days a week. So maybe you'll go to 3.5. And it's like, things start changing things. Like, you want to start at 10 so you can surf, you start at 10. You want to start at 8 because it's like it's time to go, you start at 8.
We love what we do, but if we were working 40, 50 hours per week, and if we're working with 5, 6 clients, which we absolutely could, it would take away from all of these other things in our life that we value. And it's like, what allows us to enjoy what we do so much is because we've designed this business and our lifestyle that's conducive, where there's a balance there. So, it's the most amazing place to be. And I still am grateful every single day. I still count my lucky stars, and I tell Tay, like, we literally sit there and just go, far out. Like,
This is your life.
in our 20s, like 12 years ago, like in my 10, 12 years ago, there's no, this reality doesn't exist in Simon's world at all. So I'm so far ahead of where I thought I was going to be. And it's so nice, but it's constantly having these discussions and tinkering. And hey, I wish I did stuff differently, even though like it has worked out quite well. I looked to my second property and, I rushed into that. You know, like I probably rushed into it, and I wish I did that a little bit differently. I was blinded. I wasn't thinking from the right place. I was like, get in as soon as you possibly can, and that was the be all and end all. Where
Was that in 19 or
that was
20?
19, 20. Both properties end of 2018, start of 2019, and then the second one was end of 2019, start of 2020.
Yeah.
So I wanted to accumulate as quick as possible. Best time of the year to buy. But I got in, and you know, it was cheap as chips, $362,000 or 370, and then I negotiated
Like in
8K off.
perspective, like this would have been like buying Cronulla Beach or St Kilda or Manly in
That price, yeah.
or Melbourne or Freo in Perth. Like it's absolutely insane how cheap it was at that time.
So cheap, and I was blinded by that. I was blinded by how cheap it was, and the opportunity, like 620 square meter block, 3-bed, 2-bathroom, high set Queenslander, good street, elevated, my favorite color, pastel pink.
Rundale's full.
You walk through it though, and you're like, wow, this thing's a fixer-upper. And I knew that, but same thing, I repeated the strategy from the first property, which was to buy a property that I could knock down and rebuild. So I understood the logic at the time, but once again, hindsight, and that property caused me so many dramas. The maintenance was cooked. Like I was spending $5,000 a year minimum on maintenance of that property. And because it was such a crap house, I could only attract really dodgy tenants. So tenants were constantly in arrears, and you know, I probably over the 4 years that I owned it had like 6 different groups of tenants in there. So that was silly, because I could have, at the time, I was in a financial position to spend an extra $20,000 or $30,000, which at the time would have got me a much lower maintenance house, and I wouldn't have dealt with all of these issues, and it wouldn't have impacted the strategy. So, you know, thinking that cheap was good is the mistake that I made, and the thing that I wish I did differently. I wish I had have just gone, all right, well, this is cheap as it is for a reason. And I saw the building and pest. We reviewed it together, and it looked horrible. It was about 200 pages of major team effects. I'm like, no, it's sweet, 360K, who cares? And went for it. And then the other thing I wish I did differently there as well is I actually wish I diversified. So I went into the exact same suburb that I bought the first property in, and that has been profitable. So it wasn't a bad decision, but a couple of years later, we identified the southeast Brisbane beaches, Cleveland, Victoria Point, Redland Bay, Capalaba. Like I'd looked at these areas, and I could have for the same price bought, you know, basically a 3-bed, 2-bath brick and tile house on a 600 square block that would have been built like 20 years ago for the same price at the same time. So, you know, just once again, not doing as much research as I should have done at that point in time to get into the right asset in the right location. Now, for you and for me, even though we wish we did a lot differently, it still worked out financially. So, you know, once again, I always come back to this fact, and I'm going to say it at every single property, is I'm super grateful and happy for the decisions that I've made. But, you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing, and there's always little things that you would change if you have your time over again.
Love that. You know, the third thing for me, I wish when I was starting out, I knew what financial freedom actually meant for me, because I thought financial freedom was about replacing a small amount of income versus creating or crafting a lifestyle that I really wanted to have. So I thought at the start that more properties equaled success. Like I thought the more properties I had, the better off I'd be in the future, which was absolutely true. The more properties I had, the more choices I'd make. And then I ended up creating this series of properties which basically were like a shackle, which is what debt really is. Like it's modern slavery, really.
That's all.
Get into
That's all of it. Sorry to interrupt. I saw this thing on Facebook this morning, and it was like, get a loan from the bank and pay it off in 30 years, or rob a bank and you'll be out of jail in 10 years.
check out for the stuff.
I was like, for more financial advice, DM.
That's so awesome. That's so brutal. That's so fucking funny, man. But yeah, like I think what I'm clear on now is what financial freedom means for me. And what financial freedom means to me now is my own home, owned debt free with the deed from the bank. Thank you, Phil Anderson. I've obviously ripped that idea. slash our family as well. Like they've always aimed to own their own homes. Um, and then secondly, a small dose of high quality properties that will grow in value between now and retirement age, just to make sure retirement's cool and casual and looked after. And from now to retirement, I like them to grow. I like them to be well timed. I like them to have great cash flow. I like them to be super low maintenance. I like them to have ridiculously good cash flow. So I'm looking for everything. Tax benefits as well. And so I'm always looking for those 5 things on everything that I buy. And for me, that equals like 2 to 3 houses with granny flats on them. So everyone's heard me talk about the 2 to 3 properties, the financial freedom strategies before. And if you haven't, check out the podcasts or the YouTube videos of those strategies by searching them up. But I'm really like, that's my base, that's my foundation. And then I went, well, what else does freedom really mean to me? And I've realized that time with my family while the kids are young and they still want to hang is really important to me. Time to travel and explore and surf and do those things I want to do is really important to me. And just even like the ability to spend all of my time and headspace like serving, like helping friends, helping family members, helping our community, whether that's online or the small number of clients we take on. And that's really it. Like I know that I want to do this sort of work for the rest of my life, which is helping people figure out that it is simple to achieve what you want to achieve. And with the right clarity, with the right plan, you can achieve peace and then freedom. And so yeah, that was a big lesson for me. I wish I could have more clearly articulated at the start what it meant for me, which was a home and 2 to 3 assets owned outright. And that would give me 200 grand a year of passive income plus no debts. And that would be a phenomenal place to start.
I know it's a tough question to answer, but I think it's important because I talk to so many people that are not clear on what their financial future or what their lifestyle looks like. So like, what are some of the things that you've done to kind of give yourself the clarity of like, okay, this is what I need for me and my family to live our best life? Like, have you any advice for people that are really struggling to figure out what they need?
I think there's 3 bits to that. The first bit is whatever you're earning now, if it's under 200K, you should aim to replace that. Because 2 to 4 grand a week coming in, whether you wake up or don't wake up, work, don't work is a great place to begin. It's a great place to finish, let alone begin. You know what I mean? So I think whatever you're earning now, that's number 1 you should do. I think the second most important thing that I ever did, it's actually the most important thing I've ever done in my life, was really look at what I value, not what my goals are and what I want. I'll talk about vision as the third thing, but what do I value? And I realized that I value a very, very, very small number of things in my life. Like I value family, I value friendship, I value health, I value like my relationship with God, I value like moving, and I value traveling and helping people. And so it's like, well, if I only have a small number of things, firstly, it made it really easy to say no to everything that's outside of that for me. And so I was always like this, like the kid in the candy store, just everything excites me, to now it's like, I just love philosophy and business and property. So it's like from a engaging my mind, they're the only 3 things I learn about, consume, read about, ever watch. And it's like, it makes it really freaking easy when 90% of the stuff in my world is a no. And then it's like, well, what type of...
I need to take a leaf out of your book, eh? I just consume so much bullshit.
Yeah, but I was doing the same thing at your age because you know...
I'm a kid in the candy store.
Yeah, you still got to be looking for it. But it's like, you know, and that's me too. Like I'm just obsessed with a few things. Like I've been obsessed with these same things for 20 years now. So it's like, I know what I love. And it's cool. Like I love how like broad you go with all the different things that you're interested in as well. Like I think it's so beautiful. And if I was looking at myself at 31, I'd be consuming 10 times more than I was now as well, which you are. Like you got to get the reps in at some point to get to where you're going or where you are. But I think values was a big one. So I did it using a book called The Happiness Trap. It's a heavy book because it's a workbook to go through for people struggling with anxiety, depression, or lack of purpose in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But basically there were these cards, and I sat down with the psychologist, and there was like 200 cards, and he was like, put them in yes, maybe, no. Then the maybes went into yes or no. And then the yeses went into yes or no. And then it went into most important, least important. And then within the most important, what it is. And what I found is that these aren't, I value family. Like family is not really, it's like a value, but it's more like a thing. It's more like I value absolute freedom in my life. And I value absolute responsibility and accountability. And I'm like, why was I always feeling so twisted before I knew that? Because I was either overexpressing freedom value or overexpressing being serious and looking after everyone value. And so when I figured out from this simple thing, you can order these cards online, what really matters to me, it just became so clear so quickly why I'd been like I was, and my timeline like reconnected itself, and I was like, this is cool.
I love that.
So I think values are important. The easiest way to do it is to just go, I mind map it, me, like, and then what do I value? And then I just connect out to a family, and then within that I connect out to what that actually means. So for me with my family, it's like, I really value being a fucking good dad and actually physically being there with my kids. Well, what does that actually mean? I take the school holidays off with them. From the second they get home in the afternoons, I'm completely off and engaged with them till they go to bed when I can. Sometimes I've got to work my ass off like everyone else.
Got to pay the bills.
100% I want a lifestyle, and sometimes I have to show them what real work looks like and sacrifice looks like. But when I can, I do that. And when I'm with them, I'm with them. I'm not
On your
no phone, there's no computers, there's no iPads.
barely any screen time.
I leave it all in the car because when I was really suffering with anxiety, it was so triggering to me.
What I love you did the other night, like you just bought some new swags, and like it's Tuesday night or something, and you set up the swags on a shitty rainy night, and then all of you and the kids slept outside in the swags tonight. Like,
Sleeping in the
I
swag.
fucking love that. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I'd see that as like a weekend thing, but you're just like, no, let's go, because the kids wanted to do it, and you're just like, the kids want to do it, I'm doing it.
Big time. And like getting to, I'm a kid. Like I'm a fucking kid. Like on Friday night this week, I'm going to the Rollerdrome, which is like an indoor skate center. I'm going to
For you, not the kids.
for me, and smash some dirty Dagwoo dog like covered in sauce, slap a dick on a stick, and I can't wait to get it in my mouth. And I just
Oh shit!
have a good
The
time.
truth comes out.
I'm just like, I want to
Loves the deep fried dogs.
I love the Dagwoo dog. Hey, it's fucking, I feel embarrassed eating it, but I want the dog. But I just can't wait to go. Like I'll play all the games with the kids, and
I still haven't been. Is it an ice rink now because it's Christmas?
I hope not. Fuck, I hope it's not.
Because I think they do that. I don't know when they do that.
As soon as school holidays start, they normally switch it. But you know, I think for me, just getting really clear on that, and then you know how often I do that. Like at least once a year, I just recheck in because I grow and
Change.
One of the things that you and I had on our wall at the office for years and years and years was Bruce Lee's quote: "It's not about the daily increase; it's about the daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential." And that Lao Tzu quote, like, to the still mind, the whole universe surrenders. And there's truth in that. And so when I go, well, I value health, I wake up, I pray, I do gratitude, I do breath work, I do mobility. And then every single day in one way or another at another time of the day, I move, surf, weights,
Walk,
one of the 1,000
standing
things that I
desk.
love to do, you know what I mean? And so it's just getting clear. And then the other thing that I do, the third one, sorry, this is a really long-winded answer, but this is even more important. I write, I'm 100 years of age today, and I'm so grateful for. And I'm never like, I'm fucking grateful I smashed 80 hours a week, which I used to do, or 100 hours a week. It's more like I'm so grateful I get to see my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids grow up. Like I'm so grateful that I'm 80 and I'm still doing pull-ups and push-ups and single leg shit. I'm so grateful that I traveled the world with my family, like that I surfed all of the places that I wanted to surf, that I got to spend time with my family. And it's that I got to help people. Like some of the bigger goals you and I have, like we want to buy $1 billion worth of property. We're going to
Change that goal soon.
we smash that really soon. We want to give $1 million away to charity. Like that's like these are exciting things that are pulling me forward. So yeah, that's a good way to do it as well, because
Like
it
that.
puts me in a different perspective. But yeah, I felt like I went on a tangent
I
there.
think it's good because it's probably the most complex question and thing for people to figure out, but it's necessary. It's like that Oprah thing that you told me. The most successful people that she's ever interviewed, um, she says that they know where they want to be, of what they want to do, and then they make it happen.
You know, I will say that, I will add to that, sorry to interrupt you, but I know immediately where someone's at
Yeah,
based on what do you want to do this year.
yeah,
You ask me that on any year in the last 20 years,
100% clarity.
like
Yeah.
I'm looking at it in my notes, like I print it out and I laminate it to my desk.
Yeah.
Like it used to be like my screensavers. I'm not that, like that also creates a fuckload of anxiety. But
But anxiety creates action, and a healthy level of anxiety can be good.
yeah, like there's a difference between anxiety and excitement, and sometimes life's just exciting. So yeah, but I think it's important to know where you're going, so that, what is it, that articulating thing in your brain that focuses on one thing, at like the clearer you are, the more it blocks out the noise in your environment. It's like when you're going to buy a new car, you only see that car on the road. You never
I get
notice
what you mean.
before. It's like if you're working towards your goal of financial freedom, 100, 200K a year of income, and you know what your next step is, everything else is an easy no.
That really is. I love it, man. Well, look, the third thing for me to continue on, third property, the things that I wish I did differently, and at the time I was very strapped to a budget, so like I didn't have as much freedom as I thought I did, and timing wise, I could see the writing on the wall, and I'm like, I need to get in, because if I don't, I'm going to be priced out.
Was the third one the Sunny Coast one, eh?
That was a home on the sunny coast. But the mistake that I made, or the thing that I wish I did differently, is I looked at it from a more balanced perspective. Like I just got so focused on the positives, that I downplayed the negatives.
For that particular home?
Like the positives massively outweighed the negatives, but there was some negatives there for sure. So like positives, it was a quiet cul-de-sac. So like literally I only have 5 neighbors, and it's in a tiny, quiet little cul-de-sac that nobody drives in either.
Yeah.
So super quiet, family friendly little street. It's 1,000 square meter block of land, but super inconspicuous. Like you drive into the street and you can only see like 5 meters of the front of my property. I have tradies, friends, family come around for the first time. They walk through the house like, oh, this is a beautiful house. They go out the back. What the hell? Where did that come from?
Yeah, 100%.
Nobody, like it's such an inconspicuous private little oasis in suburbia.
Yeah.
Which is such a sick thing to have. Like brick and tile house, renovator, had a heap of potential. So, was loving that. It was basically next to the best school on the south side of the Sunshine Coast, public school. Epic little park, skate park, children's play area, massive big green open space. Just around the corner, another epic park, dog park, with like this sick 5-kilometer exercise loop around it as well. Right by the shops, Woolworths, Baker's Delight, Chemist Warehouse, whatever it all is. Like
Fucking Baker's Delight, that's dangerous.
Baker's Delight, little almonds, oh, get into me, eh? And so there was so many positives, but then there was some negatives. So it was on the low side of the street, and it was at the bottom of a hill. So we live on the Sunshine Coast. It rains a lot. So all of that water comes down onto my block, and my block is constantly wet and soggy. And, I've got this massive, beautiful backyard for 3 months of the year I can barely use.
Yeah.
And the 3 months of the year,
in its rain too. It
has
has been wet.
So that was, a mistake, because for the same amount of money, I could have bought in a more elevated position. The other thing was, it was a real renovator and had been tenanted for 25 years and had been built by an investor 30 years ago. So investment spec in the late 80s, early 90s, and then low socioeconomic demographic tenants for 25 years. I was going to the inspections, and it'd be 10 in the morning, 9 in the morning, and mum, dad, grandpa smoking ciggies inside the house, drinking bourbons and vodka inside the house, and I was just like, holy moly. So like it was so run down. Like when I got there, I had to clean the gutters. There was no gutter. Like they were
Each other.
so full that the gutters had no impact. All the downpipes were completely blocked and clogged. Like every time I went up into the roof with the electrician one night, and there's like bean bags and like a makeshift room in the roof as well. Like it just ghetto, bro. Full ghetto. So like it's taken a lot of money and time to get it to where it is right now. So all of these things could have been avoided. Like what I wish I did differently is I inspected another property on a 900 square meter block in a cul-de-sac just around the corner, for the same price.
High side of the street.
Higher side of the street, higher side of the suburbs, in the same catchment for the school. Super nice. But what I didn't like is it didn't have character because it was just like super basic house. There was no trees, there was no anything on it. But, you know, hindsight once again. So that's what I would have done differently. But what I will say is like, I'm so grateful because now I have spent $250,000 on it and turned it into my dream home.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And like, I'm so proud to invite family and friends around every single morning. I wake up and I walk out the backyard and I get my morning sunlight and ground myself in the backyard with my son. I'm just like, pinch myself. Like, I'm so grateful for it. And like, we've got the most amazing kitchen. My wife loves cooking. She's got a Instagram page, a 15-minute chef, where she does all this amazing cooking in our beautiful kitchen that looks over the backyard. So like, you know, I'm so grateful and happy with where we're at and what we've done with that place. But once again, you know, the podcast is a podcast and I want to try and bring some people some value.
I think I think it's really important to say where we both started. You cannot underestimate, to everyone listening to this, how much property will change your life in a relatively short period of time, because both of us have ice baths, saunas, gyms, outdoor workout areas, you know, decks, like
Big green space.
green spaces. Like these are things that I could never have imagined when I was starting out. And all of these things have been created off the back of just selling one good property each at some point or another.
Yeah.
It's like I haven't had to work for these things.
Property's given it
It's
to it.
given it to us from just taking that plunge and buying something. So I think, you know, while this podcast obviously loaded with the lessons that we've learned, the lessons that I've learned, like I listen to a lot of Conor McGregor motivation stuff, and he, just when I'm training and stuff at the moment, I'm just frothing on it, and he talks about you can learn from a loss, and there's big lessons in this video from some of the times that we've lost, and we've lost a hell of a lot more that we talk to our clients about and teach them than we can share online. But you can learn from your fucking wins as well. If you're like a process-oriented person like we both are and like everyone listening to this is, and you can sort of figure out from other people's mistakes and your own the pattern in them and then like fix them, because we're not plants. We can grow, we can change, we can move. Like I'm learning more now from my good decisions and the good parts of history versus getting caught up in like the weeds of the worst stuff. It's important to know, and the podcast we just did before this one is phenomenal. You know, how to prepare for the coming GFC was the title. And I don't want to spook anyone with that. It's actually an extremely positive podcast, an optimistic one, because it's like it's a once in a 20-year opportunity, and how to prepare for it so that you're not burnt by it soon is also a good thing too. But I just think you can learn so much from like what works, which leads me straight into my next one, and that is,
And mine.
fundamentals matter.
Yeah.
Something similar to that.
No, mine is fourth property. Nailed it. Learned from my mistakes.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. And my next one as well after fundamentals matter is team matters.
Yeah.
So like what works based on history, we've talked about a lot, is houses in metro or major regional markets on the high side of the street, in quality suburbs, in quality parts of the city, on quiet roads with good infrastructure, good population growth, good job opportunities, connected to work, connected to main roads, train lines, great schools, universities, hospitals. Like the stuff that our parents would have bought to raise us in is what works.
And we sound like a broken record because we bring this up weekly, but it's because it is the only thing that matters.
It's the only thing that matters. Location matters, history matters. And then your team matters as well. Like you are really You know, if
Strong
we,
as your weakest link.
strong as your weakest link. And I've worked with some seriously weak links over the years because I was a weak link. Like you're only, your weakest team member is really only like there because you will tolerate them or because that's all you know at the time. And so like my original accountants were so shit compared to my accountants now. Same with my brokers, same with my solicitors, same with my barristers, same with my planners, same with my builders. Like everyone elevates up as your knowledge and experience elevates up. And you can figure that out like I did over 15 years from trial and error and referral and Google and blah, blah, blah. Or you can just work with someone like us that's going to introduce you to like Australia's best the first day you ever meet us. And I think people are like, well, what do buyer's agents actually do? Well, buyer's agents help you get financial clarity, help you design a plan to get to financial peace, help you execute the plan. But really, they should be your mentor, they should be your coach, they should educate you, they should introduce you to a world-class team of advisors. And when it's over and done, they should absolutely and unconditionally have your back until you get to where you wanted to be. It's so much more than just what everyone else in our space except us does, which is just buy you another joint. There's so much more to it than that. And I think you'll probably talk about that on your fourth property. Like that really is the holy grail is like an investment in terms of it hitting every single thing you'd want it to hit.
Well, that's right. Like the fourth property that I bought, I wasn't expecting to buy, but then, the stars aligned and it worked out that I was able to expand the portfolio. And I literally just did at the time.
21, 22.
Yeah, well, what I basically did, it was 2021. Yeah. So I basically just said to the team, to Hayden and to Crystal, I have a budget of 450. I think it was maybe 500. Go and buy me the best property in the best suburb that I can afford. And they did it for me.
Yeah.
So it was like I just lent on our team. At the time, I was busy with work and, doing the things at my home. So I was just like, you guys take care of this. And then they absolutely nailed it. So it was like the best suburb that I could afford in that local government area. It was a cracking street, super wide street, lots of big trees lining it, really family friendly, flat block, 720 square meter block of land, 18 meter frontage, like hit every single one, big trees in the backyard, school just around the corner. All of my neighbors were neat and tidy. And like, it's not a beautiful suburb, not beautiful houses, but like, really nice 3-bed, 1-bath houses that people are house proud and people are community proud and look after their area.
And we looked at 90 suburbs in South Brisbane and we said this suburb, which is Regent's Park, isn't it? Like statistically speaking, when everything was within 50K of each other, I'm like, the incomes are higher there. The
More
average
owner-occupiers.
more owner occupiers and a higher quality school district. And we're like, Simon could have bought any one of these, but we strategically picked the eyes out of the market to get that one. And it's now 300 grand more expensive than some of the neighbors for certain product.
Yeah, exactly. So, that one, there was no mistakes. I've got nothing that I would have changed there at all. So I'm really happy. But a few of the extra things that I mentioned that I believe is important and, I have done this, but I think everybody else should take a leaf out of my book is just, education and logic over emotion. So back to what you were saying, fundamentals matter, team matters. So the way that I simplify that is like education and logic. That is how you make decisions, not emotionally. Because when you're making those emotional decisions, your biases are going to take over and you're going to miss something. You'll miss something and that's going to hold you back and then you're going to be forced to fix that error down the line.
Yep.
The other thing is also go with the flow. So I built this portfolio way faster than I expected and I went with the flow. So I mentioned this story on a recent podcast where, in 2020, I was planning an overseas trip with Tay. We were committed to spending a boatload of cash on a 6-month trip through South America and Central America, wanted to travel. That got taken away from me. So I went with the flow and said, well, we've got all this money. I know what I know. Let's buy more properties. So like using these external influences like COVID to positively impact my situation, just going with the flow and not being like a victim and going, oh, I can't travel. It's just like, do what works, do what matters. And like Same with the properties. Like the fourth one that I bought, I planned to just buy and build a granny flat in the backyard. Then the local government changed their zoning. I can now subdivide that and strata title it and have two separate titles. So I'm like, well, I'm undercapitalizing on this block of land if I just do a granny flat. So I should spend an extra 200K and build another house in the backyard. That's once again going with the flow and not getting too attached to my original strategy, because what I need to do is just maximize the value of my portfolio. So there's some of the things that I will do. And so then in the future, when I look back with hindsight, I can go, well, I didn't make any mistakes. I wouldn't have done anything differently.
I didn't not turn it over just because it was a bit more effort to turn it over. Like I was speaking to someone earlier this week who, is very, very, very excited about doing something, but also very, very, very fearful about taking action as well. And many, many of us can't see ourselves in the position that we're actually in these days. Like many people are earning much more money than they were. If people listening to this are thinking about the 20-year-old self versus the 30-year-old or the 40 or the 50-year-old self, you're so much further ahead financially, equity-wise, savings-wise, mindset-wise. But unless you've done what it takes to like grow your financial like risk tolerance and personality and knowledge and skill set or team, most likely you're operating as a 40-year-old person stuck in the 5 to 6 or 10-year-old version of yourself, which is whatever your parents were. Like if they were wealthy, there's almost every chance that you've got the right mindset to go and do that. But you and I didn't come from like a place where, it was just like, here's your cars or here's your deposits, like in terms of balling out. But our parents gave us 10 times more than that, which was like unconditional love and this incredible environment and incredible skills for this as well. But it's like for the rest of us that have to start from scratch, like almost everyone we work with does, it's just like hard going to rewire your entire brain and system and nervous system and cortisol and risk tolerance to like getting in debt sucks. But getting in debt over the last 15 years means that I don't have to work 60 years. I could never work again now if I want to. But I want to, because I want to be doing something meaningful. I want to be helping people. And what I think out of everything that we've learned, taking action has been the most fun part, but the most financially rewarding part as well. Like it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you consistently do something positive in this part of your life for a period of time. And then trust me, with history, it will all end up working out.
Yeah, like I think the quote, it's either from The Alchemist or The Richest Man in Babylon, two epic books, if you haven't read them.
Epic books.
And the saying is, the goddess of luck favors men of action. And that really hit home for me because it's so true. Like you can sit on your savings and bury your head in the sand and do nothing, and you're still going to have fears pop up in your mind. Your mind's going to attach onto something and cause issues and drama and suffering. Or you can take action, start that business, invest in that property, do the thing, like what Chris Williamson says, actually do the thing. And then even if you fail, even if you make a mistake, now you know what not to do. So there's still a lesson in that, a great lesson in that. But if you do these things and you give it the amount of time that you should, 5-10 years, you're going to get the positive reinforcement from it. And the goddess of luck will favor those that took action as well. And that's what I see for myself, for our community, for every single client that we've ever worked with. I think about the 5,000 or 6,000 people that I've talked to compared to the 1,000 people that have actually got started, and the difference in lifestyles from the small minority of people that did something versus the vast majority of people that didn't do something. And now these people are, grateful for the situation that they find themselves in. And now these people are, sort of complaining about the people that have it and why they don't.
I don't know a person that's worked with us that isn't $200 to $2 million better off from the decisions that they've made with us. And that's not us. That's just history and time working in your favor. Like John Lindeman's book, Mastering the Australian Housing Market, 11% average annual return in property in the last 100 years. I just looked at 120 years of the ASX adjusted 9% plus per annum. Some decades were as strong as 13.2% per annum. Like, it's just insane. If we look at Simon Priestley's stuff, Australian residential property, he believes, was one of the top performing assets globally in the last 50 years. I think between, what years was it? 72 and 2002.
I'm not sure.
2022, sorry. Like,
The Priestley one.
yeah. But anyway, the 50 years up to 2022, Australian residential property did an average of 8.2% per annum. From Homely's data, we saw
1970 to 2016. That was that one.
yeah, when we looked at it, total return per capital city over that period of time, like divided by 50 years or 46 years, Melbourne did 9.5%, Sydney did 9.6%, Brisbane did 9.7%, Perth did 8.2%. Like, how much more information do we need to go, I believe in it?
And now that people have experienced the last 4 years, high inflation, they've realized high interest rates, they're realizing that, like, and you hear this all the time, that you can't save your way to financial freedom. You can't save your way to financial freedom with inflation. Like, it will beat you 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So you've got to do something, and that's why it's important to, do the education, read the countless number of incredible books that have been written about this stuff, listen to the countless number of hours of podcast episodes from extremely experienced people that are sharing their stories and experiences with you, and, figure out which one you align with most, and just go down that path. Like, I talk to some people and it's like they get so stuck in the details as well because they got too many options available to you.
Look, I can relate because I'm an analysis paralysis, information overload type of guy, that in the past, before I had a financial clarity and a plan, before I knew what financial freedom would look like for me, before I knew my values and vision, it was just everything was interesting. Like, duplexes here, knockdowns there, mining town
Everything
there,
does look good.
All of it before you know your history looks great. And then once you know your history, it's like, I'm not doing anything that's not on the East Coast ever again, personally.
Yeah.
No, there's other good markets as well, but then it's like, well, no, there's not. Yeah, there is.
I'll definitely not miss the next mining boom. I'll just say that.
Next time, right? 16 years when it comes again.
I will buy a property for $700,000. It'll be worth $1.4 million 3 years later.
Yeah, that would be great. And
but I'll have to wait 15 years.
No, I think we'll leave that in, Sam, but it probably should. But it's like, I'm just a fundamental investor now, and that's taken all of my information overload away. So now that I know it's my own home, 3 properties as a foundation, I'm going to keep doing heaps more than 3. Timing, developments, fun stuff. But it's like all of that becomes like joyful investing, like at the beginning, versus like, this is to survive investing.
Yeah.
And then it's like the capital cities, the houses, the good markets in Australia. For me, I'm sunny coast to Geelong. Like, that's my patch that I'm going to continue to be obsessed with. And then once every blue moon, I'll jump into Perth, like you said, for the opportunity.
Yeah.
But I just think it's so exciting and it's so simple, but it's taken 15 years to get all the way back to the start of the adventure, to go, I've seen it all and there's much I haven't seen, but it's so simple. And it's about, as you said, taking some form of calculated next step forward and trusting that your research, your due diligence team wants the best for you and you want the best for yourself. And then just, knowing you won't have confidence for the first 5 years until it's worked out, because it's only when all of my properties have gone up 200, 500K, $1 million bucks that I'm like, I knew it was a good one, but now I can see it and I can feel it.
In the pudding.
Like, that place that I thought was going to do this did it. I've sold it. I paid a lot of tax and I put this money in the bank, and now I've got a caravan, the car that I wanted, the ice bath, like those little things that are very, very, very hard to save towards. Like, a property just doesn't have to be about financial freedom and passive income and wealth creation and retirement planning and safety and security. It can be also like, I just really want to go to fucking Europe every second year for the rest of my life from 50. And if I buy one property now and I end up making 500K after tax, I'll be able to do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be so much more than just the income stream or the wealth creation.
100%, man. Love it.
I've enjoyed this. Thanks, bro.
Wrap her up.
Wrap her up. If you're thinking about buying an investment property in the next 3 months, then the team and I over here at Pumped on Property would love to offer you a free one-on-one strategy session. To book your session, all you have to do is jump over to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click that free strategy session button. Now, in that session, we'll talk about exactly where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term, and educate you on the current state of the Australian property market. And then you can take that information with a grain of salt and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the small number of clients that we choose to work with each week. But either way, we wish you all the best on your journey to financial clarity, financial peace, and financial freedom.